Coming live to you right now from the TCF Center, where behind me we are witnessing what everyone expected to be a historic vote count. Right now, as we expected, all eyes are on the city of Detroit as the Biden campaign hopes and has counted on the largely African-American vote in Detroit to pull Biden through. Where we're at right now, there are still 25,000 absentee ballots that they are going to from the city of Detroit. This morning, what that means for Biden this morning, Biden pulled ahead of Trump for the first time. He has 48.9% Biden has 49.6%. Trump has 48.9%. Translation in votes, Biden right now is ahead by about 18,880 votes of Trump in Michigan. However, we still have a lot of counting to do. Like we said, the city of Detroit right now, they have 25,000 absentee ballots to go through. After that, they're done. We also had a record turnout in Detroit, the most in 20 years, even from the Obama presidency, a 55% voter turnout by Detroit voters who came out. Largely, the vast majority of them voted absentee ahead of time. And what we found out today, we have challengers here from the Republican Party, and they are a little irritated and frustrated right now because we just had challenger officials come out and say that we don't need one person from each party to be at all these tables. And they maintained that there is an election code that is law that you have to have one Republican and one Democrat at each table to make sure that there's no foul play, that everything is fair. I spoke to the leader of one of these groups. He's an attorney. He's got about 25 people here, Republicans. They feel that the process is not being done fairly. They think it's chaotic. They've been set aside in this corner where there's media and other challengers. And they argue that the official who declared this rule that we don't need a Republican and a Democrat at each table is a Democratic nominee himself, Chris Thomas. But Chris has tried to keep the process going. We've had no major snafus to report at this point. And let's see, that's where we're at, folks.
Introduce yourself, tell us where we're at.
All right, I am just joining. I'm Teresa Baldus. I'm a reporter of the Detroit Free Press, and I am reporting live from the TCF Center behind me, as I said, where they are counting. The city of Detroit has 25,000 absentee ballots that are still being counted. They anticipate that this will be counted by the end of the night. Also, 96% of the votes in Michigan have been counted now. And as I said again, Biden picked up a lead this morning at 9:30 for the first time. He's almost ahead by 1 full percentage point, which translates into almost 19,000 votes ahead of Biden, or ahead of Trump. Sorry. If you can remember, in the last election, which was historical, Trump won this state by the most narrow margin across the country, just a little less than 11,000 votes. And why that is real crucial to the Detroit vote is that year, 40,000 fewer Detroiters voted in that election. So Detroit, Democrats believe, could make the difference. Leading up to the days in the campaign, text messages were blowing up everybody's phones. I worked the polls yesterday, and in Detroit, and many people just kept saying to me, we're so over it. We're ready to be done, and we're tired of all these text messages. But they were relieved to see the Democratic Party went to town and just hammered away at texting these Detroit residents. Also, another thing I found interesting, covering the polls yesterday in Detroit and talking to voters, Detroit voters are not single-issue voters. Many people had different reasons for how they were voting. Out of the dozens of Detroit voters I spoke to, I found two who voted for Trump, and the rest voted for Biden. And by far and large, it was let's get rid of Trump sentiment that was out there, but it was all for different reasons. For some voters, for many of them, COVID was the big thing. A lot of Detroiters, if you know, Detroit was brutally hit by COVID. More people, the virus has impacted the minority community in ways that it didn't affect other parts across the state. And so for Detroiters, COVID was huge, and they said so. Another big issue that bothered Detroiters about Trump, immigration. I had so many voters yesterday tell me that wall. Why did he want to build that wall? And the separating of the children at the border, another big issue. Again, going back to Detroiters are not single voter issues. Race relations. Race came up, but after COVID, after immigration, they did not, I didn't hear the word Black Lives Matter movement once yesterday. What I did hear was we want racial equality. We're tired of seeing young black men being targeted and killed by police. This administration, which is claimed to be law and order, isn't helping us, and that Trump is fueling the fire. So in Detroit, you have a huge mass of African American voters who are tired of the Trump presidency. They want to see Biden get in, and Biden was not their number one choice. They're not thrilled with Biden. I met a lot of voters who said Biden is really the lesser of two evils here, and I had some voters who felt that Biden doesn't really have the back of the African American community. But they said at the end of the day, we will take him any day over Donald Trump, and that's where that's how Detroiters are. Again, at the last election, we anticipated that Detroit may help swing the vote. They didn't. There was not a vote in 2016, a large vote. So if you take a look around me back here, I mean, this is historical. Historical in that we have more absentee ballots that were filed in Detroit than ever before. Some between 100 and there were 190,000 absentee ballots in the city of Detroit mailed out. Between 170,000 and 172,000 were returned. That is unheard of, and that's the vote that throughout midnight the Democratic Party kept saying, be patient, be patient. Detroit's vote hasn't come in yet. It has not come in yet. And Biden has said the same thing all night. And now, they put all their stock in Detroit. They came to Michigan, just like the Trump campaign did too. The Trump campaign did here. I mean, this is also, a testament. They 17 rallies, going to Muskegon, going to Grand Rapids. Trump was a hard campaigner, and he got out there, and as we show, I mean, this is something we've never seen before, and we are, just trying to get it all to you. We're working overnight.
Yeah, check your numbers and I'll scan the crowd. Tell them we'll scan the
okay.
crowd. Stay with us.
All right, stay, yes, yep. Stay, folks. Sorry, there's a lot going on here. I apologize. We're trying to get updated numbers. We're trying to make sure that everything is going okay. So far, it's smooth. Things are running smoothly, and we're going to go scan the crowd and check back with us at freep.com.
Thanks, Teresa.
You bet.
I'm going to scan the crowd, and then I'll get back to you.
All right.
I'm Andy Wright with the Detroit Free Press. You can see the tabulating machines once the crowd clears. They're right in front of me, probably about 75 feet. A lot of media, as you can understand. People waiting to do their live shots at noon. Again, if you're just joining us, we're at the TCF Center where absentee ballots are being counted. Thanks for joining us. Stay with Detroit Free Press, freep.com. Give you the latest numbers. A lot hinges on Wayne County in this election. I believe Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson is live as we speak.
authorized for
So
advertising.
this is just where they're probably checking the table for challenging.
Sign your name and sign your thing. There's a poll right here.
Hello, hi, how are you?
Are you the traffic cop?
Yeah. And in D-side, I can do it.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Mandy Wright with the Detroit Free Press down at the TCF Center in Detroit, where absentee ballots are being counted as we speak. As soon as we get some updates, I'll have Teresa Baldus get back on camera, but thanks for joining us. As we speak, the Michigan Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, is on one of our other channels live. So if you want to tune in and come back to us at the TCF Center, we'll be here.
She was uber competitive.
So the media is restricted to an area that is taped off. See, that is our wall. This fluorescent tape. We're being allowed to record the process, but not interfere with the process. So. If you're just joining us at freep.com, I'm Mandy Wright with the Detroit Free Press. Here, filming live of TCF Center where absentee ballots are being counted. TCF Center being the location of the auto show, but it doesn't look anything like it in the hall we're at right now, downstairs. you're just joining us, I'm Mandy Wright with the Detroit Free Press. We're in the TCF Center in Detroit where absentee ballots are being counted. About 25,000 absentee ballots from the city of Detroit still need to be counted as of 11 a.m. So we're still waiting on 25,000 absentee ballots to be counted. Wayne County weighs heavily in this election, especially for Michigan, and that vote count will matter. So far, it looks to be a very quiet morning here, just a steady pace. There are challengers on both sides, Democrat and Republican. Thanks for joining Freep.com. We are in the epicenter of absentee ballot counting in the TCF Center in Detroit. Our staff photographer, Kimberly Mitchell, using a long lens because we are behind this orange tape line. About 75 feet from where the ballots are being counted. We do have some information I'm Andy Wright with the Free Press down at the TCF Center. With roughly 96% of the vote, and Democratic nominee Joe Biden maintained a lead of about 33,000 votes over President Donald Trump Wednesday morning, which is today. So it looks like the vote count is changing every minute. Thanks for joining us. Right now it looks like Biden has 33,000 votes over Trump in Michigan. But we'll keep updating those numbers. Those numbers are coming from this spot right here, the absentee ballots. And this is where Detroit absentee ballots are being counted in the TCF Center. So
So you want me to stand up? Yeah. I'll see if I can bring a set.
So stick with us after Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson wraps up her presser. We'll be back live with Teresa Baldes from the Detroit Free Press. Counting absentee ballots, counting ballots is still happening in Kent, Grand Rapids, Genesee County, and a few other spots in the state. So the absentee ballots are being counted elsewhere across the state. Right now you're joining us at the TCF Center, formerly known as Cobo.
Get one of those.
It's great. Just out of courtesy. But yeah, I want.
See, I just like, because a lot of times I just grab the camera and throw it on my shoulder.
Yeah.
I just like to have it just plop it down so it's not.
Oh, no,
I'm Mandy Wright with the Detroit Free Press at the TCF Center, talking a little shop with some journalists around me. We're waiting on Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson to wrap up her presser, and then we'll get back to Teresa Baldes for the most recent updates. It's a drip, drip, drip of results, but patience has been the word of the last 24 hours, so everybody needs to remain patient. Unclench your jaw. TCF Center, the Detroit Free Press. Thanks for joining us. I am in the media pit. We are about 75 feet from vote tabulation. Absentee ballots being tabulated here at the TCF Center. Standing with Rebecca Cook. She's a photographer shooting for Reuters wire service. Famous Detroit photographer.
I did.
Yeah, just to reiterate the Secretary of State's words, she is stressing strongly that every vote will be counted in the state. Every vote. I know visually it's not much to see, but I'll tell you something, this is historic. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, stand at attention.
So we have an announcement.
Section supervisors and team leads. We're about to take our lunch break. We're going to do it just like we did yesterday. 2 people will go at 12:45. I'm sorry, we'll go at 12 o'clock. 2 people will go at 1 o'clock. And then 1 person will go at 2 o'clock. So please begin to identify your folks. If your table is completed, the work that they have, that whole table is free to go. But if your table still has work, I'd like to have 3 people to remain at that table at all times. I'm going to go straight on my knees. Thank you so much.
Oh, Mandy! I saw you outside. Nice to see you. It's been a long time. How are you doing? Oh my God, that was like 4 years ago. How's everything going?
It's going great. I'm live right now because it's so historic, but it's just been a wild ride.
Yeah. Oh my God, the blade. I have to actually move out of my flat because we haven't had a raise in like 18 years. Have you talked to Lori King at all?
What's that?
Andy Morrison's out here with you guys now.
Yeah, he's at the Detroit News. Yeah, he's a good guy. All right, it sounds like they're giving some folks some lunch breaks here at TCF. It's totally understandable. A lot of work is happening here, and it takes time.
Really good to see you.
Yeah, it's
I always
great.
worry.
Yeah,
I
it's
worry.
good to see you too.
Lisa DeYoung is gone from Mayfair. I talked to her the other day. She sounds good.
Okay, yeah, she's good.
She'll be fine.
All right. Apparently, Jocelyn Benson, the Michigan Secretary of State, is done speaking. As soon as we get Teresa Baldus in here, we'll give you a live update. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mandy Wright with the Detroit Free Press at the TCF Center in Detroit. It's kind of a interesting reunion of sorts. There's some journalists I haven't seen in a while, and if you hear me chatting in the background, we're a small group, but we're a tight and friendly group. So. 12 o'clock spots. I'm waiting on Teresa Baldus. She's getting some updated numbers, and we'll have them for you here as quickly as possible. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mandy Wright at the TCF Center in Detroit, where absentee ballots are being counted. Still approximately 25,000 ballots left to be counted, so Jocelyn Benson, the Michigan Secretary of State, adamant that every vote will be counted in the state. So we've got some updates for you. Teresa Ball is about to join us here. Thanks, Teresa. Come on in.
Thanks, folks, for being patient with us. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson is still speaking right now, but what she's updated us is in the state of Michigan, we still have 100,000 absentee ballots that are still being tabulated. There may be some, she noted there may be some of those votes, very, very few, if any, were votes from people that were actually cast on that day. But the vast majority of these are about maybe even a little over 100,000 ballots still left to count in the state of Michigan. Where they're coming from, 25,000 of those votes are in the city of Detroit. The other ones are in Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids. Benson anticipates that we should have a stronger count by sometime later this afternoon. Here at TCF, behind me, you can see this. People are working around the clock to count these ballots. In other places, I don't know if you'll note this, but for example, in Pennsylvania last night, they went home. They said, you know what, we're shutting it down. Not here. These folks have worked throughout the night to get these votes counted. And the other thing that was that Benson discussed about, people were asking about, could there be double voting? Did some people fill out an absentee form, and did they also vote in person? She talked about the checks and balances that were in place to prevent that from happening. So somebody could go in and say, you know what, I filled out an absentee ballot, but I want a provisional ballot. I want to vote here. And so they have to check and see if that absentee ballot was actually in. If it was arrived, too late. There's nothing they can do. But if someone wants to vote in person and then they already voted absentee, what happens is they sign a provisional ballot, they sign that they've already have another ballot out there, and then when that ballot is found, it's destroyed. So there are checks and balances in place to ensure that people are not voting twice. Benson has said, listen, we're not on anybody's timetable. She was asked to comment on President Trump last night, implying that something nefarious was going on, that someone was trying to steal the election from him. And all Benson would say is, listen, we are going to get this thing right. We are going to be careful. We are crossing every T, dotting every I. We are trying to be right, and we want to make sure that everybody who got their votes in by 8 p.m. last night, that your votes are being counted. She also talked about this press conference that happened last night with the Detroit clerk when they announced the votes that came in. I mean, there was a real scramble. Detroit has set up some 20 satellite centers and drop boxes where people were also voting at these satellite centers, dropping off their ballots. Still, even yesterday when they could have gone to their polls, it was easier. You could just go drop it off at the box. And so those numbers were coming in last night, which explains the number that we have right now. So for the city of Detroit, there were about between 170,000 and 180,000 absentee ballots that came in. The difference is when they came in, and did they come from the satellite centers and the drop boxes versus the mail, or did someone turn them into the clerk's office? But that is a significantly high number. Detroit put up the numbers that the Democrats had hoped they would. Again, if you want to go back to 2016, when Trump won by the slimmest margin in the country, a little less than 11,000 votes. That year, so if you think about the whole state of Michigan, Trump won by just a little under 11,000 votes. 40,000 fewer Detroiters voted in that election than they did when Obama ran. That was huge. So what the Democrats focused on was, we got to get Detroiters interested. We got to let them know their voice. You know, signs were up all over the city. Vote like your life depends on it. And I think that sunk in. Because the numbers are showing that. Michigan as well has had a historic absentee voter turnout. Some 3.2 million people voted in the state of Michigan absentee ahead of time. That's a big reason for that was COVID, and the law actually allows for that. I know the Trump campaign wants to challenge that. There are a lot of challengers here today with the Republican Party where they're not happy with this process because they're saying that both a Republican and a Democrat are not at these tables behind me counting and making sure that everything is being done properly. And election officials have said we only need one person at each table monitoring the process. And so Republicans are challenging this vote that's coming out of here today from Detroit. A couple of other things that came out in Michigan. Again, we've got... I'm sorry. Benson talked about why Michigan it's difficult to tally up the vote here. What are we different? How are we different from the rest of the country? Michigan does not have a centralized voting location where all the votes come in. It's done by localities. We have 1,520 different polling sites and then 85 different counties where they actually get counted. So we're at the mercy of local officials counting those ballots and getting them in. Not everybody's getting it done at the same time. Again, in a big city like Detroit, where you have this monstrous absentee voter turnout, it's going to take time, and it is taking time. We're seeing the same thing in Pennsylvania. So that's where we are, folks. You're hearing in the background, they're taking a lunch break.
That you might use your phone. However, there should not be anyone taking photos or recording anything in the Central County Board.
Yeah, that's, as you probably just heard them announce, they are keeping the media, this whole area back here, we're not allowed to go back there. They've got us back here behind these little orange dotted lines here to make sure that the media stays out. I mean, national media is here, everybody's here, and again, as we expected, could Detroit be the deciding factor in this? Will Detroit be that edge that Biden had hoped for? We don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. But right now, the vote has tilted in Biden's favor. He does have a slim lead, about a percentage point, which translates into about 19,000 votes ahead of Trump. However, we still have another 100,000 votes left to count in the state of Michigan, coming from Detroit, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, and those are the big places. So again, please return here. After lunch, we'll have more numbers. Yep. We'll keep you up to date. And thanks for sticking with us. Be patient. We're working as hard as we can to get you the most updated information about this historical election. Thanks. I'll be back.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm Mandy Wright with Teresa Baldus at the TCF Center in Detroit, where absentee ballots are being counted. It's a historic day. And we will return live after we know more. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to sign off, and we'll be back.